Bigger salaries.
Who was a better referee, you or Howard Webb?
He was abusing us constantly.
We've got loads of football fans here who are going to ask our former Premier League World Cup champions. You've named it. Mark Clattenburg's been there. He's done it. He's reffed it. Questions that referees would never normally answer. First off, one of our Tottenham fans, Seb. Hello. What are you asking?
Do you think that the respect for referees is too far gone, and how would you go about getting that back, the first kind of steps? Or do you think it's possible?
It's gone too far, and I think the only way you can get it back is that referees are stronger, but we see it year in, year out. They always say that there's this campaign, we're going to be strong at the start of the season, and in reality is clubs don't want yellow cards, so they complain to the Premier League. The Premier League get to the referees and say, look, the clubs aren't happy, therefore we need to relax a bit more. But the problem you've also got is grassroots is getting damaged. What they see at the top level of top players abusing a referee, and they see that on a match of the day when they go to play on a Sunday, they're abusing the grassroots. And the problem is you're not going to get referees at the top level without starting at the grassroots.
Yeah. So do you think any kind of accountability, especially at the top level, would help improve that? So do you think like interviews after games?
If you look at the academies,
the
academy players can't speak and show no dissent to the referee. It only seems to be when they get into the first teams that they show this dissent, maybe because the pressure's different, I don't know. But if we're going to the clubs have to take ownership, the manager has to take ownership, the captain have to take ownership. The problem is there's no ownership, because you know what it's about? Win-win. It's about 3 points, and they don't care how they get that 3 points. They're not going to say to her, I'm going to sub that player because he showed too much dissent to the referee, because they know that might need that player to win the game.
So you think the problem lies just as much with the clubs as it does with the referees?
Everybody has a part to play. Referees have a part, the clubs have everybody. Yeah. But the referees will have an easier job if there wasn't dissent and intimidation by players and coaches.
Yeah. Okay, great first question. Seb?
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
So you've obviously dealt with a lot of players and captains. Who is like the most whingiest player you've had to deal with? Someone that complains a lot?
If I look at the recent Ballers League, John Terry I would have put in. He was abusing us constantly as a man. But on the pitch, I found John Terry like a really good person to deal with. I remember sending him off at West Brom, and he was waiting for us in my dressing room on my sofa because he didn't think he should have been sent off. But no, everything I found, when players left that white line, they were a different character. You know, you saw them before the games, they were different. It seemed to be when they started the game and till the end of the game, they were a different animal, and it was about what the coaches used to do to get them wound up to play football and to win. And unfortunately, it's a win-win culture. They want to win. So you have captains that you would never see lose it. They would be gentlemen, but they would just lose it over something so trivial. It could be that they're not winning, the 5 losses off the bounce, and the reaction, they're under pressure from the fans, they're under pressure from a lot of things. So sometimes emotions just hit players. In 1 week, you could have a captain who was really difficult, but he never said anything to you because they were happy, they were winning. I remember at Old Trafford, Steven Gerrard said I was the best referee ever because he had 3 penalties at Old Trafford.
No, it's disgraceful.
But you haven't answered the question, Mark.
So someone that was just particularly
on the pitch.
Every game
no, you had. I tell you, it was difficult. Not player. Player I always found like Craig Bellamy was always my most difficult player, and I've said this many times before. Me and him just never got on personalities wise. He always challenged us. I probably as a referee wanted to fight with him. He wanted to fight with me, and there was never a winner because he always won. He was a player. He was loved by fans, and I wasn't loved by anyone. I was a referee, so he won all the time. But he was very, very difficult. He used to push you to the edge. Managers wise, Neil Warnock used to push you. He used to push you a lot because he was always in your face as a fourth official. And I remember I sent him off and I had to go to a tribunal and I had to drive all the way to Manchester, and he arrives and he did his speech, and I says, well, why did you appeal this? You'd lost. He said, yeah, I just fancied a day out.
Just to give Mark a little quick halftime orange, as you can see, being worn by our beautiful models over here, the video today is sponsored by Classic Football Shirts. Now, I'm sure you guys at home have probably heard of them, but if you haven't, they're an incredible company who I've known for a long time now, where whenever I need a classic retro football kit, I head straight to them. Whether it's home or away, for any club or season, Classic Football Shirts has absolutely everything you could ever want. They've got stores all around the world and a great website where you can grab your own kit using the link in the description below. And to make it even better, if you use my code ZAC10, you'll get 10% off at checkout. Let me know down in the comments below which kit is your favourite. And, oh, I can see Mark coming back now. Let's get on with the video.
You refereed the game, the Gerrard slip, that game. Like, as a ref in the moment...
No, I didn't referee the slip. I refereed the one before against Manchester City.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was thinking...
I didn't referee them twice in a week.
If something goes as chaotically wrong in a game like that for an individual, do you ever say anything to a player during the moment, or is it just kind of, I'm just doing my job or whatever? Or is it, if someone misses a sitter, let's say, or you have to send someone off, but they've like cost their team big time, they're going to feel the pressure. Is there any kind of words that are exchanged on a more human level?
If I looked at the Gerrard slip, I wouldn't say anything. Why? Because I think he's going to go through some emotional turmoil himself, and me going in, then it isn't the right moment. I think there's right moments to engage with players and to diffuse situations. 100%. I've had a player screaming at us that he wanted a penalty, and I said, no problem, I'll bet you £100. No problem. And he went quiet, but because you diffused it in a situation where, but with Gerrard, if you're sarcastic to players and they're emotionally not in the right place at that moment, then you're never going to win, because players will just they'll just diffuse you. They'll just not respond to you. They'll not accept you. And that's where players used to love me, because I could have a joke with them at the right moment. Because one of the things as a top referee was to manage players. And if you got players on your side early in the match and they felt comfortable with you, they made your life a lot easier. They didn't challenge your decisions, they accepted everything. And you could easily have a more successful match, where if you're getting challenged all the time, the fans think, God, the captain or the players are screaming at the referee, he must be wrong. Probably isn't wrong. It's because that they're probably not trusting the referee. And I never had much dissent in my career. I can't remember how many players I cautioned for dissent, because I had a way that I could manage players, and I used to use maybe me Geordie humour. I remember Adam Lallana once, and it was publicised in the newspapers, and he was playing for Southampton at Everton over Christmas, and he volleyed us. It was a really bad abuse, and I could have sent him off after the game, give him a red card. He would have got probably 3 matches. But I thought, you know what, I'm not going to win this argument. So I said, Adam, you've changed since you played for England, meaning you've become more arrogant. And that went in the newspaper the next day. So I said, well, no problems. If that's what players want, I'll just send you off next time, because I'm trying to diffuse the situation in the way I need to try, and because I'm not going to win if I send him off after the game and he gets a 3-match ban. But I thought I could manage it in my way, but it backfired. But it was interesting enough. Adam Lallana signed for Liverpool that following season. First game, Liverpool-West Ham. Who was the player that comes straight to us? Adam Lallana. I'm sorry, I didn't see it. You're like, yeah, you did.
I've sent Mark away and the fans just quickly because I wanted to talk to you. Just you and me here, guys. If you're not subscribed to the channel, then what are you doing? Please do me a huge, huge favour. It'll be your gift to me. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, and leave a comment on what your hot take or what question you would have asked Mark is down in the comments below.
Mark, let's get right down to business. All right.
You did. You took Isaac off us.
Well, I want to go into you a little bit. Prime for prime, who was a better referee, you or Howard Webb?
Me?
Why do you say that?
Because I was. No, it's interesting because you can have different styles. Howard had his style. He was very like policeman, and he was a policeman.
He was, yeah.
Very strong. Players liked him. He refereed the Champions League final. I did. He refereed the World Cup final. I didn't. And I knew I couldn't referee the World Cup final. I'll come to that in a second. I refereed the Champions League, Euro final, he didn't do. I refereed the Super Cup, he didn't do. I did the Olympic Games final, he didn't do. I did under 20s, under 17s, he did. So other than the World Cup final, that was the only final I never ever did. And I knew I couldn't do it because I would have been the only referee in the world ever to do all of the finals. Wouldn't happen. Doesn't happen. Because Collina is very close, and Pierluigi Collina is one of the best referees ever, by far. The best referee ever, and nobody can ever do everything. We saw it year in, year out. One of the best referees I worked with in the Euro in 2016 was Nicolai Rizzoli. Nicolai Rizzoli is an Italian referee. He was better than me. I had the best team. He was better referee because he had this aura. He had this way and manner. I was a bit more like aggressive and fighting with everybody. He wasn't. But he was accepted by everybody. But I had the best assistants. I had the best 2 people behind the goal, which meant us as a complete team were probably the best team in the tournament. That's why we got the final. But I compare myself with Howard Webb. Howard Webb was good in his ways and he had his techniques. But I feel that probably I did more in terms of finals. So if we're doing trophies, like
Go trophy for trophy, yeah. If we're going trophy for trophy,
we'll go trophy for trophy, then I've done more than him.
That's fair.
Okay. Great question.
Who do you think? Who do you think? Who do you think? Yeah. Hold on.
Yeah, give him a fiver. Slip it a fiver.
To be fair, with everything that you just listed out there with your CV, I would have to say you. And it's not just because you're in front of me, but
It is because you're better dressed than him.
Would you ever check a decision you'd made at halftime in a game? If you'd made a decision in the first half that you were, did I get it right? Did I get it? Would you check it at halftime?
We weren't allowed.
You're not allowed?
No, we weren't allowed with mobile phones. So we had to turn our mobile phones off. Well, I think it was 1 hour, half an hour, maybe 45 minutes before the game. I can't remember the protocol, but we had to turn the mobile phones off and had to stay off till the end of the game. That was to protect you as well in case of match fixing or whatever, which was an important part of it. But it was important that side of it. So we didn't have that technology. We didn't have TVs in the dressing room, so we wouldn't see any replays. But you would get a feeling. You would get an awful feeling by maybe Sky, the venue director, looking at you in a strange way. The players, you know, the players' actions and the reactions, they tell you a lot. And when you come out second half, you'll know.
Yeah.
You know, because the players they've seen it, but they'll get into your skin and say, you know what, you've just made an error. And I remember coming out after the Champions League half time, our feeling was it was incredibly tight offside. When you say it, it's probably not as tight as it is, but on the field, it will be tight for the assistant. He gets it wrong. But the feeling as you're coming out second half is the players from Atletico are saying to me, I think it was Griezmann and Koke, and alongside us going out and saying, Mark, have you seen the offside? And I'm saying, no, I haven't. And they're saying it's offside. And I'm saying, oh. But they say by my reaction, and they just move on because the respect is, the trust is, and they know that did it in a deliberate way, but they just accepted that we've got to move on. We've got 45 minutes, but your feeling was it was offside. But you know, you go into a game and 2 wrongs don't make a right, so you can't put that decision right. But what you can do is you can have football, what we call understanding the game. What you can't have is a team, which has happened in my career a lot, where all the decisions are going against one club, because that's what creates the big issue. You know, like if we'll talk about the Crystal Palace Man United final, I'm sure, but there was some balance in that game because Johnny Evans got sent off, so you can find some balance back. But when a team like Everton, when I refereed the Merseyside derby, Everton-Liverpool, all the decisions went against Everton, so there was no balance back into the game. And clubs will accept, managers accept, players will accept if 5 key decisions in the game and they got 1 or 2, they'll accept it. But if they get none, and some of them are really contentious, then that's when it creates the issues that we're having.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up. Is there ever kind of that itch in the back of your head where you're like,
give them that one?
Yeah, if there's another 50-50, I can
It's not 50-50.
not even it up. But
It's not 50-50. It's like, I had this debate in the Champions League. It was about 5 minutes into the second half, and I've got a very subjective penalty. You will have some people that will say it's a penalty, some people that say not. If we're calling it was Torres just gets a leg in front of Pepe, and you can debate it all you want, but I've looked at it and thought, you know what, would I want to settle the game on it at 0-0 in the last minute on one of them what could go either way? I could have probably seen it slightly different because I'm seeing it differently.
Yeah.
But while I've got a situation where potentially Real Madrid have scored an incorrect goal because we didn't have VAR, I've now got a decision where if I whistle no penalty to Atletico Madrid, Atletico would use that as an excuse for Mark Clattenburg that we've lost the final because of the referee.
Yeah.
What I've done, I've given a decision that I can give because it was a contact, but it's a highly debatable contact. Yeah. I've then gone penalty kick. And then the only people that can complain is Real Madrid. How can they complain? Because that had an incorrect goal and an offside. So what you're doing, even though you can find a bit of balance back in the game where you, as a referee, top referees could find lots of balances, which just keeps everybody happy. Because people say you apply the laws of the game. That's football fans, but that's not football. Football is about understanding the game and applying what you've got, the laws of the game, the interpretation of the game, and also the game itself. And you know, if you have no yellow cards and you're into the 88th minute and you've got a 50-50 yellow card, people say, well, that could be a yellow card, but the human side of it as a referee, you'll think, you know, I can manage this, I've managed all of the game, why am I going to issue a yellow card? Because if you do issue, the players get upset because they think, well, you've managed this game, why are you giving us a yellow card? But then that could have been 5 yellow cards in the game and the same type of tackle is punished. And people say, well, you should apply the law the way it's written. You can't, because you're managing the whole event. And people criticise me for the Battle of the Bridge. Why did I not send Eric Dyer off? I should have. But I wanted to play an advantage because I thought Chelsea could have scored again. Edward Hazard went in a run, and consciously I'm just wanting the game to flow because I want Edward. Because one of the best things for a referee in the world is playing an advantage in the score. I know Mike Dean used to celebrate. I didn't, but I loved a goal where I'd played an advantage and just scored. And that was another one example where I got caught in the emotion. Yeah. And I wanted Edwin Hazard to score because I wanted to play that advantage. But when you look back at it, Eric Dyer was lucky to be on the pitch.
Yes, he was.
Yeah. Well, just for the record, I agree that you're better than Howard Webb.
Thanks, man. I like him. Put him on.
Okay, so I mean, I know refereeing, I appreciate it's a very difficult job. I'm not a professional, but one of the 2 times I have refereed, I thought I would never do this again. So, but then I've always wondered, why does it seem like referees, football referees, retire quicker compared to other sports? I don't know, is it just a fitness thing? Because I look at other sports, especially when the referees are of a very high level, they tend to go for a much longer time. And
it was interesting because when I first started refereeing, the cut-off period was 45 years old. So you couldn't referee beyond 45. That was because of European legislation. So once that legislation got dropped, and I don't remember the year it did, but referees were allowed to continue after 45. I left early, but I didn't leave early because because I was the youngest Premier League referee at 29 years old. So I actually refereed 13 years at the top level. And refereeing at that long at the top level is not easy because you're refereeing the big sides. You're mentally drained every season. You don't really I never really got a break pre-season because I was always in tournaments. So I was like just constantly. And in the end, it takes its toll. And what you've also got to understand, and it's a full-time job, but you're giving up your industry. So I left my electrical industry at 24 years old. 29, sorry. And then I couldn't retrain to come back. So I'm only a referee. Yeah. And yes, we're talking about the referee's salary before. However, it's not life-changing. It's a great salary compared to doctors, nurses, firemen, fire brigade. That save lives. So comparative, it's a great salary. In football, it's not a great salary because, there's so much money. But you're not going to, like players can retire and be financially rich. Referees couldn't retire and be financially rich. So you've got to then look at your next focus. And I left to go to Saudi Arabia for that step. I knew Saudi Arabia could provide that for my family and myself, the financial stability for the rest of my life. And then I went to China. That also supported the financial side of it. So I didn't have to worry about staying till I was 50 years old to worry about the money. I think there's referees that have gone too far and carried on too long, probably some seasons longer. I remember Dermot Gallagher, for example, carried on too far, and his last season will always be remembered as his season. And I think referees should finish on a little bit earlier. But you've got players are younger now. You look at top young players now. Young players are coming into the Premier League. They don't last more than 10 years because of the demands. Yeah. And I think referees are the same at Premier League level. The demands are burning out. And you reach a level and there's only one way you're going to go, is down. And what I wanted to finish my Premier League career on a high. I didn't want to be remembered going too long. Even though I was 42 years old, I probably could have carried on. I could be probably still refereeing now. I'm only 50. I could have still been refereeing in the Premier League now. But would I have been the same referee as I was 42? No way. Because not just physically easy to keep up with play, because you read it, but it's the
Mental
mental
part.
side of it. You know, the way you see decisions and the way you see things is different when you're younger than you are when you get older.
Well done. Well done. Well done. Really quickly, one from me. What position did you play?
Can I tell you the truth? It was I wanted to be a centre forward, so I started off as a centre forward, scored goals, and I remember playing. I was 9 years old playing under 13s. Then I went for some different trials, but I knew I wasn't good enough. These players were another level, and ended up getting pushed back to fullback, which means one thing: you're shit.
Do referees get influenced by crowds, like genuinely?
I tell you what it does to me. I can only say for myself. What it used to do is give us an adrenaline rush. So there's some stadiums like Galatasaray, Besiktas, the Turkish clubs were incredible. The hostile, the way, like there's not many stadiums where you're warming up half an hour, 40 minutes before kickoff and the stadium's full. And they're screaming, they're throwing fireworks on the pitch. In the warm-ups, it was unique, but that would give me the adrenaline that I wanted. I think, especially for me, I wanted the bigger, like more the crowd, the more adrenaline it would give us. And it was harder when you, for example, you refereed in front of 500, like at a match at grassroots, because that 500 was worse actually, the abuse, because you could hear them. You know, that you could hear the odd person in the 500. When you've got 70,000 people screaming at you, you can't hear a thing. It's just a murmur. So I found it where I loved the big games. Not that I want to be the centre of attention like people think I want. It was the adrenaline. And I think everybody says that, pop stars say that, they want to play in front of a big stadium. It just gives you that adrenaline rush and gives you that chance to that you want to perform at the highest level. And I loved, like, you know, some of the hostiles, like the Turkish teams, you know, Barcelona, Real Madrid's, them stadiums were, you know, iconic and also like quite intimidating. And I think that's what give you that wanting to be the referee and to referee at the highest level.
Yeah. So as like a follow-up, because I don't know if you would agree, but I think the standard refereeing these days is a lot lower than it was.
Yeah,
back,
I think
back
because,
in your day. So
yeah, because I think, like I said, when I first got in the Premier League in 2004, there was 24 referees. I was probably one of the lowest ranked referees, but I quickly got established. So I was topping up a good group of referees that were accepted. All of these have retired. They've lost a lot of experience. People criticise Mike Dean, but he refereed 40 games a season. I left early for the Saudi money, of course. But no, I'm joking.
don't blame me.
But I left to go to Saudi. That was 40 games I could referee. Then you lost Martin Atkinson, Andre Marin. All these referees would referee 40 games without much issues. When you lose all of that, who plugs the holes?
Well, no, fully.
There's nobody.
Yeah.
There's no experience. You've got poor Mike. Like, no disrespect, we can criticise Anthony Till and Michael Oliver all we want, but there's only really 2 or 3 that we're getting the top games. And it'll be interesting to see who referees the Liverpool-Manchester United game this weekend, because that'll be either Anthony Taylor, Michael Oliver, or maybe one of the FIFA referees. But there's not a big pool of referees anymore, and the only way you're going to get that is by getting the experience. But we don't accept them. You know, teams are criticising, for instance, Jared Gilley from Australia, who came in to live in England and work in England, so he gradually came through the systems again to reach the top level. And, you know, is he a capable referee? Yes, he was FIFA in Australia. Is Australia different to the Premier League? 100%. You know, we've got MLS. VAR came into the Premier League. It's completely different football. It's different stresses, you know, and I think we need referees to get experience, but I want to get referees with character back. I want personalities back on the pitch, and we don't have personalities anymore.
So earlier on we were comparing to other sports when we were talking about the challenge system. One thing you often get cricketers asked is, what's the funniest sledge they've heard on a cricket field? What is the funniest thing you've heard either one player say to another player or a player say to you? Or if you can't answer that, who is the funniest player do you think you've kind of refereed in terms of their chat?
Oh, God. Chat's always been, I remember, you know, players like to give you the. I remember Jordan Henderson giving us load of stick once, and I know his mum and dad are from my region in there.
So you can give it back
near Sunderland, yeah. So I give him back, and I just said, "I'm going to tell your mum what you've just said." And he went white. So you can have certain moments if you're going to try and diffuse it. Players chat was always like they spoke in their own little languages. I remember crowds, for example, and I just signed for Saudi Arabia, so it was in the March, and so I'd had a week off, and then the management asked us if I want to referee because I knew I was going to stay at the end of the season. So it was the West Brom Bournemouth game.
Right.
And I remember the Bournemouth fans, because it was like easily here, they said, "You've sold your arse to the Arabs." And I was
Right.
like, well, that's nice.
Yeah.
So you could hear that, and it like, but like players wise, I've never you never say you banter. You know, I remember players used to, certainly like when foreign players used to come into the Premier League. I remember Arshavin and the Arsenal players were winding them up. You know how to swear and say bad
Yeah.
things and go up to the referee and tell him to fuck off.
Yeah.
You know, thinking he might get sent up, but it was just a laughing and banter. You know, and you had that always aside. And I remember Mort Gans Pedersen played for Norway, Blackburn, and he would teach us some really bad words in Norwegian, and he would go like, "Try and speak Norwegian." And I'm like, "No, I'm not speaking them words." So there was that banter, but it was like, you know, but on the field, you know, there was that serious edge about it.
Yeah.
It was a win-win, and after the game, it was completely different.
Yeah. Were there any players that, if you mentioned Adam Lallana earlier, that if you could give a little bit back to, they could take it quite well?
There was a lot. You know, you could speak to John Terry and give him it. You know, you could give Steven Gerrard it. You could give Rio Ferdinand it, Wayne Rooney. You could, but it had to be done in the right way. I was not the sarcastic. I was never trying to be cocky to them. I treat them exactly the same. You know, bang, bang. You're two footballers. But if there was a way for me to manage situations without issuing a yellow card, for example, or a red card, like I said with Adam Lallana, then I would try and use that opportunity.
You take that approach, yeah.
Because that's why you gain respect. If people can think, you know what, I'm in the heat of the battle, I probably said the wrong words, then they might apologise the next week and say, "Oh, you know what I've said is out of order." But that's where it should end, you know. And I think sometimes now, the way football is, I think it's changed so much. We don't have them characters anymore. I don't see players like having that banter like they used to be.
Do you think that's why referees maybe get undermined a little bit more now? Is because obviously we spoke earlier about, Seb, you asked a question about respect, where they maybe see that these referees don't quite have that same character that maybe you did or someone else did, where they could give a little bit back and just actually develop that relationship with the players. Do you think that's partly why the respect for referees has gone down?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's respect. I think what clubs do now, because there's such huge win-win situation, they want to win at all costs. I think they look, and if they get an inexperienced referee, they're putting pressure on.
Yeah,
they
see it as a 1%er to kind of gain a bit.
Yeah,
of
they
advantage.
put pressure on the referees. You see it. They'll for example, especially at home teams, if they want to put pressure on the referee, they'll get players to go down under little contact. The crowd goes up.
Yeah.
It puts pressure on the referee. If the referees are strong, they'll try and fight through it. But what you don't want is everybody to be against you. So you've got to try and manage them situations. I think it's, you know, for me, it's important that, you know, the young referees, they learn quickly. And I think tactics, like one thing that I learned as a referee and how I got better as a referee was I started to learn tactics. I understood what clubs were doing, what players doing. And I remember a situation, it was a Champions League semi-final. I was refereeing Bayern Munich, Barcelona. And the first leg was finished 3-0, 3 late goals from Barcelona. So the games, you think, well, hold on, I'm refereeing Bayern Munich, Barcelona 3-0 up. But I knew if Bayern Munich scored the first goal, the place is going to be bouncing. Yeah, it's going to be game on. But I had Pierluigi Collina was my observer for the second semi-final. He says, "Have you watched the first game?" I went, "Yeah, I've seen it 6 times." He went, "Have you really seen the game?" I said, yeah, 6 times. He says, "Did you say anything?" I went, "There's no problems, was there?" He said, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Oh, Pierluigi Collina said that. There must be a big pump."
Yeah.
So he opened his laptop up and he showed us situations where Thiago, who was ex-Liverpool, was blocking Piqué from set plays, and every corner, every tack and throw-ins, every set play into the penalty area, Thiago was blocking Piqué. And what they were doing was, Bayern Munich were notoriously tall. They had Muller, Lewandowski, you know, they had the fullback Boateng.
Yep.
So they had all tall players. If you remember that Barcelona team that didn't have tall players,
very small.
Alba,
Messi.
Yeah. So they had in Mascherano. So they had all small players, and what they were doing was using only tall player, Piqué, to block him, so they created space for a free header. So they were blocking, making a foul, especially from offside situations, which wasn't an offence to be in an offside position. So he would just block Piqué going to head the ball at the initial phase when the referees normally are watching the ball coming in. So he just said, "Look, you're going to have to solve it because it's a huge tactic that can cost you a big moment in the game. And if there's a goal scored by it, it's controversial."
Yeah.
And I remember 13 minutes into the game, and I've given a free kick, and Piqué's the positioned where I knew he was gonna make a block, and I've just gone up to him and I've just gone, if you make a block, I'm gonna punish it with a free kick.
Yeah.
And he went, I'm not gonna do any, like in broken English, and I went, do it.
I saw it.
And I whistle.
Game. Yeah.
No,
So
I didn't say about the first game. I just said if you block. And I remember the
but it's
coach.
planting that seed that he thinks that.
Yeah, and I remember the coach from Barcelona. He was going crazy to the fourth official. It's a tactic. The tactic. He's going to get blocked. And the fourth official went, calm down. And I remember giving the free kick. The commentators didn't even mention it. Nobody even discussed it. And I looked around and Piqué's clapping when I give the free kick. He couldn't believe that I'd actually understood the game of football and the tactics that players were trying to do to win games. After that moment, I could have done anything in that game and players would have believed it.
Yeah.
And once I started to understand what players were doing and why they were doing it, I became a better referee. But that was all because of Kalina. He gave me them tools to make it understand.
Can I ask a follow-up question off the back of that? Where do you...
Jesus Christ.
Sorry, I was just going to say... I was just going to say, where do you think, in terms of like set pieces now, and obviously there's been a bit of a focus on it over the last couple of years, maybe with Arsenal kind of employing these sort of little dirty tactics from set pieces, maybe holding the keeper's gloves, allegedly, but like holding the hands of the goalkeeper and all that kind of thing, trying to block. Where do you think we're at now in terms of that, and what do you think is kind of the line in terms of what should be let go and what shouldn't be let go?
That's been going on for years. I remember Jens
like
Lehmann, people used to stand on his toe because he used to go crazy. It's been going on for years.
But I suppose in the VAR era, it feels like especially over the last maybe 2 or 3 years, there's been more of a spotlight on it. Because
there's this pure decision now, the decision that's got to be correct. I think it's been going on for years. I think there's some things that we'll accept.
Yeah.
And I think, now that there's all these set play coaches, there's throw-in coaches, set play coaches, there's so much invested in football to win and to score a goal. And Arsenal are probably the most successful at set plays. They've scored more goals. So it's working.
Yeah.
But they're playing it within the parameters. They're making these small blocks. Yeah. But as a referee, I would be saying to the players, if you're going to make that block, I'm going to punish it. Yeah. Which means the players are thinking, but there's no point doing it. He's watching it. Yeah. The issue is, if you don't solve it before and then you let it happen, it's controversial. Yeah. I think if you say to a player, don't do that, I'm watching it, I know what you're going to do, the players are more likely to think, you know what, there's no point doing this because he's going to see it.
Yeah.
If you say nothing and then you punish it, they get frustrated because they think, well, why you give it?
Yeah.
And I think being proactive as a top referee was always better than being reactive.
Yeah. Okay. One final one from me. Why are foul throws never given?
I know. I see it more and more, don't you?
Thank you. Thank you. Honestly, 50% of
I think
throw-ins are foul throws.
I think the one that I can't get my head around, and I've seen it a couple of times recently, because it looks like they throw the ball down, but it's not. It's behind the head.
Yeah.
The one's worst is the foot up. You're seeing more and more now. The foot is up.
Serge Aurier did 3 in one game once. And he got called.
And he got called out.
Did he?
3 times. Yeah.
The only ones I used to give foul. I very rarely give it for. Sometimes the assistant, if they were busy, they would say his foot was over the line. But the ones that were mostly, I used to allow, especially if they were time wasting. I hate, and it's one of the things quickly. It's a couple of law changes I would love to see in future for football. One of them is the throw-ins. What a player can do, and they used to laugh at you. So what a player used to do is, if a player comes up the touchline, right, he wants you to send him back because he's wasting time.
Yeah.
And he's like, you send him back and he's laughing, going, hey, I've wasted a bit more time there. Yeah. So for me, if a player takes too long at a throw-in, it's reverse it.
Yep.
Because a yellow card is irrelevant.
No.
They're not going to get a second yellow.
Same as time wasting for goalkeepers, isn't it? It's not a deterrent for them to do it again
No,
because they know they're not going to get sent
So the
off.
8 second is, okay, it's in the law. It was 6 seconds before. All they've done is increased it by 2 seconds and highlighted it more. That isn't the issue. The goalkeepers aren't the issue. The issues for me in football at the moment is corner kicks and goal kicks. Goal kicks are taking too long. Corner kicks are taking too long. So what teams are doing? They're just trotting up to the corner and it winds us up. If we want the game to be improved, you give them a time slot and as a referee you go 5, 4. If they don't run up, you say, well, look, I'm going to reverse. I'm going to give a goal kick. Because you want the game to flow. We want the game to be exciting. I think, was it one of the games of the season for me, this season, for excitement, was Newcastle-Liverpool.
Yeah, great game.
One of the greatest games, but it was one of the worst games for time in a Premier League.
Yeah.
How can that be? Fans pay a lot of money to watch football, And everybody's got a responsibility to make it as long as possible. We want to see more action. We want to see more entertainment.
Yeah.
We don't want to see the ball over the touchline when we should be watching the action. That's what players get paid to play.
So, Mark, you know, like the added time, it's now a lot more added time in games these days. As a referee, do you guys enjoy when more added time is added on, or is it a thing where you kind of just want to get out there straight away, or especially when there's a moment where it's at your discretion, because maybe there's been an injury in added time? Are there times where you guys let me get out of there, or is it more to stop? Like,
most of the time, if I'm shy, yeah, definitely, I want to be out of there. I want to be subbed. No, it's interesting because added time is bigger now, but it's not scientific. It's weird that I think referees use common sense, which people say referees should use common sense, but then you're not allowed to use common sense. But I think if the score is like 4-5-0, and I think one team is like demotivated, everybody wants to be off. You know, the other team's done the job, the other team's defeated, and you look at the balance and you think, well, there hasn't been much injury time, and you find maybe 2 minutes or 3 minutes maximum, and then you get some games. But we went hugely on added on time, so you very rare got 5 minutes, 7 minutes. Very rare you might got it, but I hated it because it was a lose situation for us, because we've got more time for criticism. If we make one mistake in that injury time, I could referee the game for 90 minutes, perfect. And then I make one mistake in injury time and everybody remembers it.
And that's the headlines, yeah.
So it was like extra time. I hated extra time. And all my major finals went extra time. And I hated it because I got no extra salary. If I'd got extra salary, it'd be like bing bong. Yeah. But I got no extra money for it. And I've got to referee another 30 minutes. And if I make a mistake in 30 minutes, I'm going to be the talking point. And referees don't want to be the talking point. When it goes to penalties, it's brilliant.
Yeah,
I love penalty kicks because somebody's going to get praised. Nobody talks about the referee in a penalty shootout, do they? No. Because there's always a hero and there's always a villain. And I'm like, perfect scenario for a referee. Let them decide it. And that's where I used to like. I don't like extra time. I would rather just go straight to pens, me.
And just into because nowadays, I know when you was refereeing, you said it wasn't as much as now because without VAR and stuff. Do you think the newer referees now probably have the same opinion where they kind of want to get out of there? Not get out. I don't say they want to get out of the situation, but it's kind of like they don't. It's harder to. There's going to be if there's a big call.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how long you've refereed for the whole game. It's just a lot of pressure.
No, I understand your question. I just think I'm not sure I think the young referees are worse at it. I think statistically, I haven't seen statistics, but I think young referees are they're playing to the book, and I think what they'll do is what we had a very similar. How we used to calculate added on time. So it was like a substitute 30 seconds, a yellow card 30 seconds. But that wasn't factual because if I quickly threw a yellow card up and the game went on in 10 seconds, so why am I adding 30 seconds? I think the younger generation play by the book. And I think that's why there's this, frustration that because for years everybody's accepted the way the older referees manage games. If it was, 4-0, we would play 2 minutes. In UEFA competitions, it was like, you would never want to play 4 minutes, because the other team, they're out of the competition. I think leagues is always a difficult one because you've got goal difference, and while goal difference is in place.
I don't know if you remember that day. I think there was the Haaland one where the Man City, you guys were in on goal and the rest blowing it.
Yeah, but that's
against Spurs. Yeah.
That's ridiculous. That was ridiculous. Because there's one thing referees were always taught, and it's not in the laws of the game, but it's always is trying to finish the game in a neutral zone. I never finished. Technically, you can actually blow. The only thing you can't blow on is a penalty kick. So you've got to allow the penalty kick to happen and add it on time. Yeah, I'll teach you. But corner kicks isn't. But one of the biggest frustrations is you give a corner and the other team want to take the corner. And I know as a referee you're thinking, oh God, there's 20 seconds over. There's 20 seconds over. I'm going to get criticised if the score. But that's the life you've got to lead as a referee. But what you do want to finish, especially when you went into Europe. You want to finish it in that neutral zone around the halfway line. I would never finish the ball. And I tell you a story, and I nearly did it. And I would have been criticised. I would have been on the Christmas videos. Well, I was on one anyways, with Mendes' shop. And it was Luton Vale Liverpool in the FA Cup. Remember it? Well, you were too young. And Alonso. So the score was 4-3 to Liverpool. It was an incredible game of football for an FA Cup game. It was incredible. I probably made mistakes, probably. But it was an incredible game of football. And Alonso picked the ball up. The goalkeeper had come up for the corner to try and equalise. And they got caught out. And Alonso picked the ball up. Probably just outside his own box. And I thought to myself, I was just about to blow, finish the game, you know, why not? The game could be finished. And Alonso just pings it. And I'm thinking to myself, oof. And when it hit the back of the net, I thought, wow, better luck there, because I could have blown there. And imagine the ball, he scored one of the best goals ever. And I'm the referee that nearly blew it. And I did, I nearly blew it because I thought the game's over. But if I'd stopped that emotion, and that what we all love football for, I would have been the centre of attention. People would have criticised us forever. So do
you know what? It's funny that you say something like that, because I think, as I said, referees never get praised for doing. It's like, oh, you know, Balotelli saying, "Postman, I don't celebrate for doing my job." But I think that's something probably a referee should get praised on, even though you're probably not going to get an opportunity to speak on it, maybe publicly.
Yeah,
you just did a little bit of like, oh, you know what?
Referee of the year.
No, I didn't want referee of the year. When I watched the game back, I remember doing Man City.
I'm going to watch it back now as well.
Yeah, I remember refereeing Man City Arsenal. And was when Adebayo scored, and he ran up to the opposite.
In front of the fans,
But if you watch that phase of play, the assistant flags for a foul, clear foul, right? It was a foul, and I just saw an advantage, and I went, which I should have done in the final, by the way. He's thinking Andy's head. But when I played the advantage, the cross came in, and Adebayo headed it, and it was an amazing advantage. And I hear the commentator back on the TV when I analysed the game back, and he was like, highly praising the decision that I'd played this wonderful advantage that made a wonderful goal. And sometimes you get that, and you sometimes referees were always looking at the negatives, but sometimes you've got to look at the positives, and you think, well, actually I did something positive in the game, you know, that I made a goal because it was a foul. Would they've scored from the foul, from the free kick? Probably not. So I've done something positively impact. And I think commentators and people should actually sometimes praise referees when they do something well, because we're always in this negative world of criticising. And I think I've seen games where I watch and I think, oh, that referee did a wonderful thing there, but it never gets mentioned.
It'll probably go a long way.
Nobody cares about it. They only care at the moment about what negative about. Did the referee spoil the game? Did the referee give us the other team a penalty? Did he make a mistake? Yes. But there's actually some good decisions, and I made some good decisions in my career, and I made some bad ones. But everybody only remembers the bad ones.
Okay, well, we'll bring in referee assist to the tally and get the man of the match.
Mark, how do you think we can encourage more young people to become referees?
Bigger salaries? No, no. I think over the last few years we're seeing a bigger recruitment of referees. So there's more referees coming into the game. The issue is you can't keep them because they get abused at grassroots, and the issue is, and that where the system was, the referees have to go through this grassroots level to reach the top, which is what we see in the Premier League, Champions League, and they don't get enough protection. And you see we've seen some videos of horrific incidents where referees are abused and assaulted. And while that's in place, referees are scared to do it, and the small money that they receive doesn't outweigh the problems that they have. And I think once we get that protection in place, and the academies, for example, is a great way to bring referees through. Yeah, we need referees at grassroots, and we'll always have referees that want to referee for their 15, 20, 30, 40 pounds that they get, which gives them a little bit of beer money or whatever they need. But if we've got a talent of a referee, or we see some good young referees, then bring them through the academies. Because now we're seeing academies at 12, 13, 14, under 15s, under 16s, under 17s, under 18s. There's many matches which we can bring a pool of young referees through, so we can support the top level, because without that, we're never going to get referees at the top level. And one good thing is full-time refereeing helped, because I could see a pathway as a job. So when I was refereeing, I had a job. I was electrical, and but I wanted to be a referee because I knew when I started off at 16 years old, referees were professional, or close to professional. When I was going through the system, they became professional. So I thought, you know what? I don't want to work as electrical anymore. I don't want to be in the cold. I want to be refereeing. So it was a dream for me to be able to walk and referee some big matches. But you've got to have a system in place to protect them.
Obviously, Bournemouth Stadium is small, it's tiny.
It is. And it was a nightmare getting out as well.
Oh, the traffic!
The traffic.
Goodness gracious!
But, compared to like compared to the massive stadiums, how is that? Like, it's sort of a similar question, but how is it refereeing a Premier League game in such a small stadium compared to these massive ones like Old Trafford and Anfield?
It's interesting because it's not just about the stadium. Like, I think, for example, Bournemouth is a lovely club and very family. It was like quite a family-orientated club. Still, there's not many clubs like that. When you would get looked after before the game. You'd get looked after the game with food, drinks, and they wanted to make you feel a part of the club. And I remember refereeing, I think it was one of your first Premier League games against Aston Villa.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember going and I'm thinking, a small stadium, 12,000, but the atmosphere was incredible. It doesn't matter if there's 70,000. You can go to sometimes at Arsenal, and after half time, there's nobody in that middle ring. All the hospitality there's nobody there. And Old Trafford's the same. If Man United, sometimes it was quiet, so it doesn't matter if there's 70,000 or 12,000. But what we laugh about Bournemouth, that stadium, it's incredible. It was a nightmare getting in, a nightmare getting out. And you know what? It was miles away from Newcastle.
It's on the furthest
trip. So far.
Furthest, not the worst one. The worst stadium to ever go to as a referee for me was Carrow Road, Norwich, because if anybody knows the road network, you come down the A1 and then you hit the A14, and that A14's most of it's single roads, and you get caught behind a tractor and you can't move for and you're like, especially on a night game, I always had to stay over because there's no point driving home because it used to destroy you. But there was a way I could get to Norwich, Newcastle, Amsterdam, Norwich, but the Premier League wouldn't pay for that.
Obviously, when you refereed at the top level, you've got so many eyes on every single match that you referee, and fans like to make it known when they're not happy with the ref's performance. What is the one game that you've received the most backlash and abuse from fans? And then how do you deal with games like that? Because then next week you've got to go out and referee again and pretend like that's not happened. So how do you deal with that, and what individual game was the worst?
So I'll give you the game, and when I give you the game, realised that I had to take a holiday afterwards, which means I didn't referee the following week or the week after. So I did get probably not a suspension, but I was taken out of the firing line, probably for the right reason. In 2005, I was a young referee, and I was 30 years old, second year in the Premier League, getting a little bit of experience. And I refereed the Manchester derby. Following week, I refereed the North London derby. And the week after, I was given Everton v Liverpool, and it was a game too far. And I'm not criticising the Manchester derby, but I always found the Manchester derby quite friendly because players knew each other, they lived next to each other. Players were kissing in the dressing room, in the tunnels, shaking each other's hands. There was no rivalry.
With tongue or?
Yeah, I don't know. I wasn't watching, but they were friendly. The North London derby was quite similar. As fans, we've always got that rivalry. Newcastle Sunderland's a massive rival, but the players don't communicate with each other. They hate each other. It was very similar to Liverpool Everton. Probably that the rivalry was so big, and I didn't read it correctly. And there was situations in the game, and I talked about balance. I sent off 2 Everton players. Could have sent off Dirk Out for a challenge, which I took some advice from the assistant who was more experienced. Probably in hindsight, more experienced, I wouldn't have done that. But then I didn't give Everton a penalty in the last minute. I just don't see it. Carragher brings down Lescott. Everton should have had a penalty, which would have made it a draw. And if they'd scored that, if I'd give the penalty and they'd scored, we'd talk about I had made some errors in the game, but it would have been accepted because the balance got back in the game. Everton got the chance to make it 2-2, and I just didn't see the penalty. And it was all of the big decisions went against Everton, and that created a huge issue. I didn't referee for a few weeks. I didn't referee Everton for 6 years. And then after that, it was like, I'm not saying nothing had happened because fans will never forgive you, but I refereed some amazing games at Everton after that. They beat Man City 4-0, they beat Arsenal, they beat Manchester United, they've beaten most of the big sides when I've refereed at Goodison Park. So, yeah, fans will never forget. I'll always live with that moment when I've made a mistake. But it was funny because there was a fan. We'd never had mobile phones in them days. So I remember a fan used to ring me house phone every Saturday night, an Everton fan. And he used to do it week in, week out, about 2 a.m. He must have been pissed and thought, I'll ring his number. I don't know how he got my house number, but because we weren't in the phone book at the time because we weren't allowed.
Can't look at the yellow
so,
pages.
Yeah.
There's Clattenburg.
There's Clattenburg, yeah. The only Clattenburg in the phone book. So, and he used to ring us every week. And then one week I just got fed up. So I got my whistle and blew it down the phone. He never rang us back.
It's been built up What is your one question? For
one gripe.
It's not. I don't want to be selfish because I understand people here probably don't care. So I'm going to kind of frame it as
You've won it
a double
since. Don't
question.
worry, you've won it since.
Exactly, we have. In that moment, because we were just saying
Mention
that.
the moment as well, for
So
people that don't know.
FA Cup final 2016. I believe the score's 1-1. Connor Wickham is brought down by Chris Smalling. He was on a yellow card.
No, it wasn't 1-1 at the time.
Was it not?
No.
Well, he was.
It was. We're going to it.
Wickham.
So it was a few minutes into the game, and probably about 2 or 3 minutes. And I'll probably, you're refereeing one of the biggest finals in England, the FA Cup final. And even though I was experienced, a bit like a player who wants to be on the ball in a cup final. He's at Wembley. Your legs, honestly, your legs feel like jelly. I don't even think I could run because you've got this adrenaline, but it doesn't matter how fit you are. I've spoken to players about it. Something about Wembley and in a final, you think, God, I'm going to get injured. I'm going to get cramp. All of this is going on in your head. And I think I was wanting, wrongly, to want to get me first whistle. I just feel I was wanting to get a feel of the game. And when Chris Smalling brought down Connor Wickham, it was out on the touchline, and I just thought, you know what, it's a foul. And I blew me whistle. I didn't see the bigger picture, probably because it was an FA Cup final, because it was a few minutes into the game. I just got dragged into a situation. No matter how experienced I was, dragged into a situation. It was a foul. I've got the decision correct, but I just didn't play what I love doing, playing advantage.
I think that's the gripe, is that you were.
But what the gripe, and I'm going to give you back to all Crystal Palace fans, because the abuse I take off Crystal Palace fans, rightly and wrongly. However, that's a foul. I give Chris Smalling a yellow card. If I play the advantage, I'm not going to give him a yellow card. Yes or not? Probably not. Because it's 3 minutes into the game. It's a foul. It was a careless foul. But because of the position, if I play an advantage, I haven't stopped a promising attack because you've still got the attack. So I'm going to give you the chance if I'd played the advantage. What does happen, the goalkeeper stops, the defenders do half stop. So it wasn't a clear situation where I've clearly stopped you a goal. Players did stop. Connor Wickham knew the whistle had gone as well. I'm convinced.
He did carry the ball towards the goal.
He did,
and he was pretty much.
But I'd already blown the whistle, right?
Yeah.
I've cautioned Chris Smalling. The score was 1-1, right? When I sent off Chris Smalling, I wouldn't have sent off Chris Smalling if I hadn't give that free kick. So your criticism, yes, I should have played an advantage, which we don't know the outcome because things happen.
Connor Wickham's goal.
Yeah. But the purists say we should have played the advantage. Yeah. If they hadn't scored, I wouldn't have cautioned Chris Smalling, right? And you hadn't scored. Because you think you'd scored, I've cautioned. Later on, when it was 1-1, I've reduced Man United down to 10 players. And you had the best chance to win a cup final. You're up against 10 players. You're 1-1. It's your chance.
Yeah.
But because some things that maybe the coach did, some things that the players did in the game, they made mistakes. I made mistakes. The coach made mistakes because, you remember, Jason Puncheon wasn't included in the starting 11. All of these things were highly debated, but the anger goes towards me because Crystal Palace. But it was the only cup final. It was funny because, this is the different respect between England and European. When I went to pick my Champions League medal up, the stadium applauded. When I went to Wembley steps. Up one side was Man United fans who were giving us loads of jip and booing us. I come down the steps, Crystal Palace fans were booing us. I got booed from both sides of the stadium.
But I guess the kind of follow-up question to that decision, and when you make a mistake, what is the process as a referee when you make a big error? How is it then kind of followed up by PGMOL, the FA?
Well, it wasn't a big. It was. I've made the correct call. If it's my judgment, if I want to play an advantage or not. I got the decision correct. The decision's right.
Is it away from this decision in just generally refereeing?
Yeah, if you make a big mistake, then you know that you're going to be punished. Like I said,
but what happens? What is
I don't referee for a few weeks, which hurts you as a referee because you want to be refereeing. You want to be out every week. You want to be, as a top referee, you don't want to be because, for example, if I'm not refereeing in the Premier League, it'll probably affect me Champions League. European games as well, so I'm in a catch-22. I want to be refereeing, and I want to be refereeing at the top level. What I can't, I understand the criticism from Crystal Palace fans, but not to the level it was. I think the problem with Crystal Palace fans is it stemmed over not just the cup final. The cup final was the end.
We were awful, but
it was 12. It was not because when you refereed Brighton, Crystal Palace when you won 4-1 in the cup in the playoff. And I think you got promoted that season.
I think it was 3-1, but yeah.
It was a 3-1.
Yeah. The Amex, yeah.
Maybe. So whatever it was, he's won. And he's won easy. There was no problems with the refereeing performance.
Just say it again for him.
Yeah. But you went into the Premier League, and you never won a game. And I think it was 12 or 13 matches. You never won in the Premier League
because we were not very good.
But it was not just. I remember there was one game. I remember it was January, and I'm thinking I'm going to break my hoodoo here because mentally you're thinking, and it was the same with Wigan. Wigan, the secretary, Stuart Hayden, used to write to us on an email. Wigan 0, Clattenburg 6. Wigan 0, Clattenburg 7. They never won for 12 or 13 games, but they never had that gripe. Do you know what I mean? But Palace fans had this gripe that they thought everything was against. They thought I was against them. I wasn't. And I remember the game. It was against Aston Villa, and you were playing away from home. And I thought Villa went bottom, and I'm thinking this is the moment. This is the moment that Crystal Palace are finally going to win a game. Because mentally you're thinking, well, hold on, Crystal Palace were mid-table, going well. Villa were plumb bottom. This is the moment. And you got beat 1-0. I think, was it Hennessy threw one in?
Yeah, probably. Sounds like Hennessy.
And I'm thinking, it's my idea. They get beat 1-0 and I still got the blame.
Unbiased opinion, do you think there's any value in having players or ex-players help VAR in their decisions?
I believe in VAR. I don't believe that ex-players could be referees. And I'll take an example. I remember Steve Baines. When I was a Football League Football League assistant referee, he was a referee and he was fast-tracked from being a professional footballer to being a referee. So within 2, 3, 4 years, he became a Football League referee. And it was funny because I remember warming up once in a game that I was officiating with him, and I'm like, where's Steve Baines? And I looked around, he was putting balls in from the corner to the goalkeeper. He forgot that he was a referee and not a player. And I think some referees as well, ex-players, their line of what they believe is a foul challenge is slightly higher than a referee's and what everybody expects, because the most important thing is you protect players. And I'm not sure ex-players have that mentality. Some will, but not all of them will think. They'll think like a football player. But what I do believe is that they can help in the VAR. And I think as an assistant VAR, they're not the final decision maker. But if you are asking an opinion what football would expect, the football player would tell you.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the red card which got overturned with on the foot. Was it the Fulham? No, was it Fulham? I can't remember the one now. But there was a challenge where the referee got I think it was Fulham, wasn't it? Yeah, Fulham, where the referee sent a Fulham player off. If you understood football, you know that that's not a red card. And I think if the VAR had spoke with an ex-player who was alongside him and said, well, what's your thoughts? Give us your rationale.
Just help.
And he had these rationale. The final decisions with the VAR, but at least he could have a second opinion of an ex-player who thinks, you know what, that's a genuine attempt for the ball. There's no malice. There's no force used. But I think sometimes referees don't understand the game. They know the laws of the game, but they don't understand the game. And I think ex-players can help that.
So a couple of years ago, back in 2020, Brighton played Manchester United and we got a last-minute equaliser.
Not guilty.
Pardon?
I'm not guilty.
And yeah, Man United had one last corner. Maguire heads against Mope's arm and it goes out. And the full-time whistle goes. And then they go and check it. I'm sure you've heard it. I just want your thoughts on that.
Under the law, under the rules and under the protocol, they're allowed to do it. I don't think it's the smartest thing in the world, because what I would have done is I would have allowed the VAR with a corner or the goal kick and just hold. I would never finish the game. I wouldn't finish the game and then have to, like, a minute later come back out, or everybody celebrating the victory or the loss or the draw, and then to make such a call to bring everybody back into the focus of a penalty. I think the smarter move would have been to finish the game as corner or a goal kick and then do the check, allow the ball to come back and play. And I think a clever referee could have played the game for another 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and then blew the full-time whistle so everybody knew the check was over. I think the danger is the check, everybody thought when the referees blew the full-time whistle, the check was over. And I think everybody sees it. You'll argue if it was a handball or not. For me,
I'd say so,
it probably was a handball, but it was just messy. Messy because when you blow the full-time whistle, you feel that game's over, and it should have been. But I think the referee hadn't followed the protocol that he should have allowed the goal kick or the corner to wait, and I would have probably allowed the corner. But you're just hoping, fingers crossed, that there's nothing happens off that corner, because really you want the game to end, but you don't want to end it, like I said, on a corner kick, even though you're right in law. But the world, if it happens to your team, you're opening yourself up to criticism. What you do is you want the corner in and nobody scores and the ball clears and you go,
and then you play.
Brilliant.
So there we have it. 20 football fans up against Mark Clattenburg. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I think everybody here has enjoyed it. Well, without further ado, Mark, where is it?
Yeah, blow your whistle.
You're off.